But we have immediate news. This is something that at 4 o'clock today, I'm being told that Baylor's Board of Regents and others will be meeting to discuss the future of Mack Rhoades. And what I mean by that is working out an agreement with Mack on interim leave, and eventually he's not coming back. And today they're going to meet about it. And I think Baylor wanted to kind of release this a little bit later on. I did speak to one member of the board who told me that, no question, the meeting was just to figure out exactly the protocol on how they will move on with Mack Rhoades not coming back as the director of athletics.
Well, this wasn't going any other way. When Tim Brando was on yesterday, he said, well, I really, he's like, I hope Mack gets through this. And, if he comes back, and I want to be like, buddy, that's not happening. I mean, just the entire breadth of the story, which is now just between Mack and Baylor and his family and all that has to happen. But that's all over. But the actual, ink being dry on the separation agreement and whatever this is. And I kind of always thought that Baylor would negotiate this out and he would, find the softest landing they could make happen for them. Although none of this has been soft, given how it's gone down. Now the question for me is, how quickly can you get another AD in place, and what's a reasonable timeline for that?
I was asked, I asked this question, Craig, about whether or not could they move forward. One, they have to make sure everything legally is where it needs to be, but and that's just a matter of the agreement and the two parting ways. But yet they can't. That Dr. Livingstone can make a move if she wants to, if it comes to anything else outside of the AD job, with, of course, the thoughts about the future of Dave Aranda.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was the logical conclusion, and Pete Thamel's now had this, and why we're starting off with this was, I mean, you had your side of the report, but now Pete Thamel has come out here in the last few minutes and has basically said that, yeah, the expectation is that Mack will be talked about later on this afternoon, and will most likely be parting ways with Baylor Athletics. So getting the exact verbiage that he had, Baylor's expected to soon announce the departure of Athletic Director Mack Rhoades. He's on leave from the school for personal reasons, and the sides are planning to announce he's stepping away immediately. So that was the follow-up to what you had earlier. But, yeah, he's a guy who did a lot of good for us and was a really good interview on occasion. I think, they kind of started to get closed in towards the end these last couple of years. I don't know what really dictated all of that, but it just felt like they were kind of trying to go their own direction in terms of like insulating their coverage almost to a way and really kind of blocking people out, almost to a degree. And so felt sort of separated from him these last couple of years compared to when he was like a weekly guest, but he gave us a lot of time, and we'll always appreciate that and the brief interactions that I had with him. But I said it on Twitter, I don't think there's any question they had to make this move. And I felt that way last week when the other news started to trickle out, and just given where the fan base is right now, the apathy, given just where athletics is, where nothing's really excelling at this point in time. Like, we'll see in basketball, but like no one cares about women's basketball right now for the most part. I'm just being honest about that. And men's basketball has their fandom, but we know that will come and go as success comes and goes. So like if they are really, really good, then the folks will be there. And if they're not, then eventually that will start to dissipate as well. But my point being, there's just nothing that's like riding high at the moment. And 3-4 years ago, it seemed like everything was. And it's just been a slow, and in some ways a quick, just kind of downward spiral to where now you've got not stories about losing, but stories about people and interactions and getting into it with a player, and then whatever these personal reasons are. And it's like, man, yeah, now's the time. You've got to make a clean break. And I think that they're making the right decision.
This is a very interesting fan base because they've been through a lot. It's, it feels like it's always something with Baylor. It's all the last 4 ADs have all left, not of their own accord, so that's all that's happened here when it comes to athletic directors alone. They've held the Scott Drew and the basketball program hostage ever since he made his first NCAA tournament. Like, he's the best coach that Baylor's ever had in any sport. Well, I guess Kim Mulkey, but he's one of the best coaches they've ever had in any sport. And he still has to kind of beg for them to keep on keeping on. in spite of being a national championship winning coach. And then the apathy with the football program. So the next athletic director has a big job, especially when it comes to football, and not just hiring a coach that's going to make the fans excited, putting on a game day product that's going to make the fans excited around the stadium, on doing all those things and reviving what has been a very dead pre- and post-game scene as well.
We used to have Mac on a lot, but 35 times a year, and then that kind of dissipated about 2 years ago. 3-9 in football will do that. It wasn't a very good time. I remember when I was told, and all of us, that we were making to get him maybe once or 2 or 3 times a year, and then that even was difficult. I do remember one time, and again, for a lot of what he did, from the time he took over during the shrapnel from Art Briles and Pepper Hamilton to much more, and a lot of what he did for the Big 12 when they were trying to gain teams, not the first 4 that came in, but the Pac-12 schools that were going to join, that he was on the phone for 8 to 12 hours with Mark Harlan over a couple of different days, and a couple of days later, that finally became official with Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State. But he screwed up. And one of the things that I remember asking him, and it was the only time in the time I've known him, we've known him almost 9-10 years, where he was pissed. I said, are you so involved in a lot of these national committees, the Big 12 Advisory Board, about to be college football playoff spokesperson or just a part of that, and the Big 12 realignment? And I said, are you able to take care of your own backyard? And he felt like I was taking a pot shot at him. And some people might have thought that way, but maybe that in the end was also he just was worn out, no excuse for what he's done. But that was kind of, to me, the legacy of Mack Rhoades.
Yeah, I think he started having his hands in a lot of different projects. And, there's the whole element of, it's not just that. That's not, the only thing that is potentially at play here. I mean, there's the personal issues, whatever those are, that were also having some effect. And if nothing else, were against what Baylor stands for and what he should be doing in his role as director of athletics. So there was a combination of, I think he got stretched out with having a lot of different things on his plate. And then whatever was going on off the field, people can assume or fill in the blanks or what have you. But it's a weight that he eventually couldn't carry, and it was becoming clear that he was reaching a breaking point, because you start having altercations on the sideline with players. I mean, no athletic director should ever be doing that, and you could have just fired him right there if you wanted to, but they downplayed it. Like, everybody there seemed like, no, it's cool, we're over it, and it's like we're going to move past it and it'll be fine. But then the next Outkick story drops, and you're like, okay, no, there was something else clearly than just that, and it's not something that you can come back from, or something that you can just move past, like the Trig deal, where maybe you go, all right, well, there was a disagreement of some sort, or something like that. And even then, you could, again, have said that was enough to draw a line if you wanted to. I just don't think that we ever had specific details until it was already kind of down the tracks and they were trying to move forward once again. And then this was very quickly after, and just derailed any chance of that happening. So, he has to look in the mirror, and he's got to get himself and his personal life in order, whatever that entails. And I wish him and the Rhoades family, especially his family, nothing but the best, because I know that there's a lot of probably secondhand embarrassment and just whatever there may be within that relationship that needs to be repaired or worked on or what have you. So it sucks for his family to be collateral damage in this, but that's how it typically works. People make bad choices and bad decisions, and it's not them that always takes the brunt of it. It's their family or friends who had nothing to do with it, unfortunately. So I hope he gets right, and I hope that Baylor Athletics goes ahead and finishes this discussion later on this afternoon, and they can come to an amicable agreement where both parties can start anew, because I think that's what's absolutely needed for both parties right now.
I tell you this, when I was speaking to a board member last night, it was very clear that this was a matter is imminent. The other part of it is that they want to be very aggressive in what they do. Now, what they can do, or who is available, or what they can possibly, as far as who's next, obviously the Dave Aranda decision is like next in line once the ink is dry. And that is the next one. And as soon as the possibility, if you don't win the game in Tucson on Saturday, you might be looking for a football coach as early as on Sunday. which would be the normal thing to do if that happens, because you have a home game coming up. It's a holiday weekend against Houston, and you might not have 10 or 12,000 people inside McLean Stadium.
Well, it would be wiser for them to, if they really, and I don't think the Arizona game should determine what you're going to do or not. If they beat Arizona, you shouldn't all of a sudden go, oh, he'll fix it. Everything's better. I think you should probably already have your mind made up on that. And now that you do have to bring on a new AD, since Dave Aranda's future is nebulous, then I think that you could just go ahead and let him go so that you don't put that on the new athletic director have to come in and fire him. He just gets to come in and hire.
Yeah, I think the Dave Aranda thing feels like inevitable as well at this point. Now, it may not be because there might be contractually some things that are too tough to handle all at once, perhaps. But I think this, like I said last week, the timing's ripe for them to just make a clean break from this era and to start anew and start down a different path. I think that's needed. I think being there at the game last Saturday and not being able to, I won't be at any of the remaining two because of Thanksgiving break. I'm not going to come back just simply for that game against Houston, but I'll be watching, and then obviously not going to go to Arizona this week. If they were like 10-1 or something, maybe we'd be out in Arizona, like if it was worthwhile to go. But I think that the crowds have kind of already stated their cases and have been for a couple years now. The support has waned tremendously, and there's just a complete lack of excitement surrounding the program. And I don't think that there's anything winning-wise they could do at this point to really change that. Even if they were to win these next two games against Arizona and Houston, I don't think that changes the feeling whatsoever. If you make a bowl game, I think it's one of those years, man. I'm telling you, I've heard this from I came across a Kansas State fan or something that said this, where it was like, yeah, they could technically make a bowl game. I don't want them to make a bowl game. Like, I don't want to drag this out any further. Like, I want it for the players, but if I'm a Baylor fan, I don't blame you at all if you're like, I don't want to see them go to the postseason because I just want to get on to the next thing. And if it were the old era where bowl games meant a lot more and you're building for next year and all that, that'd be one thing. But it doesn't feel like that's really the case right now. So that's still technically in play. And maybe reeling off 3 wins and finishing, what would they be, like 8-4 or whatever, or no, like
8-5 right now.
7-5.
8-5.
They finished 8-5 with a bowl game.
Yeah,
that'd be the exact same thing as last year.
Yeah,
with a team that was supposed to be competing for the big. So I just don't think there's anything substantial that you can really wrap your arms around. And I mentioned it the other night. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to find a billionaire that's going to suddenly go buy you a bunch of dudes because you're losing Sawyer Robertson and you're losing Michael Trigg and you're losing Josh Cameron and you're losing guy after guy after guy after guy. There's nothing on defense to speak of, which is your specialty, mind you. So you just look around, you're like, what is there? I just think this Mack Rhoades situation maybe came at the proper time for just a whole complete break. We'll see, though. I know that there's contracts that, again, have to go over that might complicate things, but not surprised to see Baylor make this move. We can get to Aranda whenever that occurs, if that occurs. But as far as Rhoades goes, and I know it's not completely official yet, but it sure appears like it will be. I think this was just the logical outcome given recent events.
Yeah, and that's the way you do it, because you want your football coach to be hired by what you hope or who you hope is your next AD. But I don't think, and I don't know if they'll have the replacement in place or anyone promoted and or brought in for that. So, but this was the obvious step. And when I reached out to a couple of different people, I was surprised at how forthcoming they were to me about, we're meeting tomorrow at 4, and that's on the schedule. That's on the docket.
Well, especially given the last few years where everybody's been just like not saying much about anything, and you never really get a feel for what's going on. And now it's like, everybody's like, I think everybody understands the timing of this thing and that there's a massive need for change right now before it's too late to change. And this is a program, much like many others in the Big 12 in particular, and some in the ACC, where you look at the timing of things coming up in the next few years, and like there might not be a Super League cutoff or anything along those lines. There might not be a cutoff whatsoever. But if there is, you better have your ducks in a row. And even if you do, it still may not matter, Kansas State or Iowa State or Baylor. But you better position yourself to be ready for whatever is coming when the new TV deals begin and get negotiated. And the way that they're trending, it's nothing but downward right now. They in 2021 had the greatest year you could imagine: basketball national title, football best year ever, Big 12 title, Sugar Bowl title, and that was the year we'll always remember. These last 4 years have been awfully forgettable in a lot of ways, and so. I mean, how much longer do you continue down the same path before you look back and you're like, damn, it's been 7 years we've just been doing this with nothing happening? And so, yeah, I think, again, the timing's perfect.
The timing, by the way, the Baylor board and all the others in the decision-making process, they did not waste time. Now, sometimes there was even thoughts. I had people, well, they're going to wait and this. And no, they aren't. And once the ink is dry, then it's official. But they could have let this linger, and sometimes you would have thought maybe they probably would. Nope. They're pulling the trigger. They're moving on, and now they have other to-do lists to get crossed off in the next week or less, I think, in my opinion, and in theirs too.
I think that I'm very shocked that they moved this fast. It's not really a Baylor tradition to make swift decisions.
Well, now's the time to break tradition, because tradition hadn't been doing anything for you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I also have felt over the last few years that there were like certain ththings that happened that didn't have anything to do with one another, but they used those as cover for less access, because I think they, we got less and less and less and less. And it was like, well, we can't talk about this anyway. So you're like, okay, well then we might as well not talk to you. Like, well, we can talk to you about other things. Like,
we're not that interested in those things.
Yeah. But so there you are, the story with Mack Rhoades. The meeting was supposed to be, and is in fact just around the corner, but I'm sure there's a lot of working the room, et cetera, the phones and much more throughout the day, and has been really since probably, when was it, last Thursday or Friday, when all of what was reported about Mack outside of the incident with Michael Trigg and Jared Anderson.